Today we are going to read sonnet number 18. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day by William Shakespeare. The famous English poet Shakespeare wrote total 154 sonnets. Among them, 1 to 126 numbered sonnets were dedicated to Mr. W.H. Most probably, he was the Earl of Southampton or the Earl of Pembroke. From sonnet numbers 127 to 152 were addressed to a mysterious dark lady, and sonnet numbers 153 and 154 were addressed to Cupid, the Roman god of love. At first, we need to know what sonnet is. The term sonnet is derived from the Italian term sonetto, which means a little sound or song. Sonnet is a short poem consisting of 14 lines. In the 13th century, it was originated in Italy and developed in the master hands of Dante, Cavalcanti, Genesoli, and later popularized by Petrarch. Petrarchan sonnets have their own strict structure. They were divided into two stanzas, an octave consisting of 8 lines and a sestet of 6 lines. They were written in iambic pentameter, and the rhyme scheme was ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. Though the rhyme scheme for the sestet could differ, including CDD, CEE, CD, 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 or CDD, CDD. Now we shall go to the general discussion of the Shakespearean sonnet number 18, Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Shakespeare did not follow the conventional Petrarchan style or pattern. He divided his sonnet into 3 quatrains and a couplet, that is 4, 4, 4 and 2 lines. In each quatrain, first line has a rhythm with the third line and the second line has a rhythm with the fourth line. As for example, the last word of the first line, day, has a rhythm with the last word of the third line, May, and the last word of the second line, temperate, has a rhythm with the last word of the fourth line, date. So here the rhyme pattern is ABAB. Again in the second quatrain, the ending word of the fifth line, Symes, has a rhythm with the ending word of the seventh line, declines, and the ending word of the sixth line, deemed, has a rhythm with the ending word of the eighth line, untrimmed. So here the rhyme pattern is CD, CD. Then in the third quatrain, the finishing word of the ninth line, fade, has a rhythm with the finishing word of the 11th line, said, and the finishing word of the 10th line, oest, has a rhythm with the finishing word of the 12th line, growest. So here the rhyme pattern is EF, EF. The last 2 lines is a couplet, as the last word of the 13th line, C, is rhyming with the concluding word of the 14th line, D. So we see the rhyme scheme of the whole sonnet is ABAB, CD, CD, EF, EF and GG. In this sonnet, there are 5 fits in every line, and each fit there are 2 syllables. One is unstressed and the other is stressed. As for example, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Shall is unstressed, I is stressed, come is unstressed, pair is stressed, thee is unstressed, two is stressed, are is unstressed, some is stressed, mud is unstressed and day is stressed. So here we see that Shakespeare here used iambic pentameter, the preferred meter in Shakespeare's work. In the sonnet, the first 8 lines, that is the first 2 quatrains, Shakespeare presents a question or a central dilemma. Then the first word of the 9th line, bird, is the turning point. Thus the third quatrain is the turn from the question to answer, from the central dilemma to a solution. Then in the couplet, Shakespeare provides the final solution. It is the final summary statement of the whole poem itself. Now we shall try to analyze the whole poem line by line. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Here the word thee means you. That is his friend Mr. W.H., who was most probably the Earl of Southampton or the Earl of Pembroke. In this first line, Shakespeare puts a rhetorical question if he will compare his friend with a summer's day, because summer's day in European country is very beautiful and comfortable. It is the symbol of prosperity, fertility, flowers and happiness. Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Here thou means you and art means earth. In this second line, he is just answering his own question. That is, he cannot compare his friend to a summer's day because his friend is more beautiful and more moderate. Here the word more is used twice to emphasize his friend's beauty and oath. Rough winds do shake the darling birds of May. Now in the third line, Shakespeare focuses on the fact that though summer days are lovely, it sometimes gets troubled by the various natural phenomena. As for example, in summer season, harsh winds blows and spoils the lovable birds of May, which would have otherwise bloomed into flowers, and summer's leaves hath all too soft a death. Here hath means has, and lease is a legal term which means to borrow or lend something for a specific time. So the poet tells that summer days are granted very short span of time, and with the coming of a new season, the beautiful days of summer are to fade out. Sometimes too hot, the eye of heaven shines. The poet here personifies the sun and describes it as the eye of heaven. He points out in this line another defect of summer season. He tells that in summer sometimes the sun shines so brightly that the weather becomes excessive hot and uncomfortable, and often his gold complexion dimmed. As the summer season is endowed with sufficient sunlight, Shakespeare here tells that its complexion is gold, but frequently various natural phenomena disturbs it, and often the sun loses its brightness and becomes obscured by the clouds, and every fair from fair sometimes declines by chance or nature's changing course and trend. Here the poet uses the word fair twice. The first fair is used as beautiful objects and the second fair is as beauty. Shakespeare here indicates that every mortal element has its own decay or death. So every beautiful object in this world inevitably loses its beauty and extincts now or later for some reason or other through nature's changing course of decay. But the eternal summer shall not fade. It is the turning point of the sonnet. And the turning point starts with the very word but. Here thy means yours. The poet assures his friend that the youthful beauty of his friend will not be subjected to death or decay, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Here the poet again gives his assurance to his friend that like every mortal element, he will not lose his beauty which he owned against the destruction of time. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest, he said. Here death is personified, and the poet reveals the inevitable truth that from the birth every mortal slowly approaches to the shadow of death, and it covers the life force boastfully. But the poet says that even death cannot touch his friend's beauty. When in eternal lines to time thou growest, the poet emphasized that he will write such a sonnet that will eternalize his friend's beauty. Physical existence can be the subject of decay or death, but one's qualities can reach the eternity through the work of art. So the poet will make his friend's beauty eternal through his eternal words and with the time his beauty will vanish. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this and this gives life to thee. This couplet is the summary of the whole poem. The poet here indicates his intention of writing this sonnet. He tells here that his friend's beauty will get immortality as his sonnet will be read by generations. As long as there are humankind in this universe, his sonnet will be discussed or analyzed again and again, and with it his friend's beauty will be rejuvenated.